Okay, for those of you who saw my video on WBC 2018, you'll know that I came back from WBC with several titles in the Great Campaigns of the Civil War series. I ended up getting on to Richmond, the Peninsula Campaign, Atlanta is ours, and just prior to WBC I had bought Roads to Gettysburg 2, Lee Strikes North. And this particular volume actually has 3 games in it. It also has Here Come the Rebels, the Antietam Campaign, and a new campaign on Early's March to Washington in '64. So I'm going to do a review, or review is not the best word for it, because I've not played the games really. I attended Ed Beach's very good seminar on how to play it at WBC. In that one he was using the South Mountains scenario from Here Come the Rebels. I had played the South Mountains scenario solitaire a couple of times to get familiar with it, and so I'm still learning the system, sort of just walking into the waters and easing myself in and letting the cat out of the bag. I can say that I'm very, very favorably impressed with this system. So this video, like I said, is not going to be a formal review of the system. I'm still learning it. But in the video, I'm going to try to show you all the good things about this system and why I like it. I'm not going to try to go through a playthrough or show how to play the game. Other people have done some very fine videos on that, and I don't want to repeat that. I'm just going to show you some reflections on the one scenario and what I think about it, the system in general. Okay, well, when I was younger, I tended to buy more battle games in the Civil War, like the old Avalon Hill Gettysburg, the '88 version. I did delve in campaigns, wilderness campaigns by SPI, and I got Bull Run, Avalon Hill, and 3 Battles of Manassas from the Gamers. I bought this new battle hymn, Gettysburg game, and ended up getting Last Chance for Victory. But as I get older, I begin to realize, in all this reading, hopefully getting older you get wiser, I'm beginning to become convinced that many battles that I've studied in the Civil War and out throughout history are actually decided at the campaign level. In other words, when the 2 armies come together for the actual battle, it's almost decided, which isn't to say that battles couldn't have been won by the other side. They could have, but I think it's on the campaign level that I'm more interested in the campaign. And what I'm going to show right now is the setup for the Gettysburg campaign beginning June 29th. Let's take a look. Okay, we're looking at the setup for the Gettysburg campaign beginning June 29th. Now, we're so high up here, you're not going to be able to see much, so I'm going to zoom in. But to give you an overall impression, you can see that Lee's First Corps, Longstreet, is concentrated there around Chambersburg. And you can see Ewell's Corps up here near Carlisle, and Jenkins' cavalry approaching Harrisburg. Way off to the east is Early's division over at York. And you can see the Union Army is concentrated very much in the Frederick vicinity. Let's take a closer look at that. Okay, we're looking at the Union Army, recently under Hooker, now under Meade, concentrated very much here in the Frederick region. Reynolds' First Corps, Howard's 11th, the 12th, Sickles, Hancock, Gregg's cavalry, and Buford's cavalry over here too. You can see it's very well concentrated. Now, if we leap up here to the north, we do have Longstreet and Hill and Robert E. Lee himself concentrated around Chambersburg. As I had mentioned, way off to the north here is 2 divisions of Ewell's Corps. And way off to the east is Early's division. Now, looking at the situation overall, June 29th, you can almost see that the campaign for Lee is almost already lost. For one, look where Stewart's cavalry is. It's way, way off to the east, kind of trapped behind the Union lines. And for Stewart to meet with Lee, he'd pretty well have to go through Westminster, Maryland, maybe Taneytown, Littlestown, travel through Gettysburg and meet Lee to the west. But that's going to be almost impossible with the Union Army in between him and moving north. And this is one of the major reasons why Lee was out of touch with the Union Army. Stewart is just out of position. And that's a major contributor to Lee losing the campaign, because Lee did not know what was in front of him. Now, the Robert E. Lee, Jeb Stuart controversy has been raging for well over 100 years, and there's been several good articles on it and several books. The latest one is this one here called Plenty of Blame to Go Around, Jeb Stuart's Controversial Ride to Gettysburg, and this is a very good book explaining Stuart's role in the campaign. But in the end, with Lee not knowing what was in front of him, they stumble into each other here at Gettysburg. Now, the scale of this game is very interesting, and let's take a closer look. Now, one thing I love about this series, and everybody has talked about it, is the quality of the maps. The maps are just outstanding. They're just beautiful. And the scale is approximately 1 mile to the hex. So it comes as no surprise that Gettysburg, that we've come to be used to seeing as a battle game, is about 4 hexes tall by about 4 hexes wide. You can see the round top here, the town itself, Culp's Hill, Wolf Hill, Benner's Hill, and the Lutheran Theological Seminary at this scale kind of melts away into rather almost clear terrain. And over to the west, where Lee performed a concentration of his army, is Cashtown. Where's Cashtown now? There we go, Cashtown. So you can see that the entire Battle of Gettysburg on this scale, if the armies came together, they would have fought perhaps in these 3 hexes here. That's how you do a grand assault in this game. You'd need the presence of Robert E. Lee or Meade to do a grand assault. Because the level of simulation in this game is divisions and brigades. For example, you can see Hill's corps here near Chambersburg. The counters consist of the division counter itself plus a strength marker below. Heath, Pender, and Anderson. And of course there's Hill, the corps commander. The corps are designated by different colors too, and I might say that the game is very easy to sort that way. And I recommend you, well, everybody's sortation method will be different, but what I did was put the strength markers in their own little wee trays and just bagged the armies separately and marked them. Because don't forget that this game does come with Here Come the Rebels also, so you'll want your sortation method to be fairly efficient. But it's an easy game to set up. Now the manual is quite thick, it's on good quality paper, and there's a mine of information. Remember that there's really the equivalent of 3 games in here. So all the setup information is here. There are illustrations. It's a very well done book. This series is not for the beginner though. If you're trying to introduce somebody to war games, I certainly wouldn't begin with the great campaigns of the Civil War. Someone who is interested in the Civil War perhaps might grasp the concepts, but it's certainly not a beginner level game. How does the game play? Well, it plays pretty darn good the way I see it. It's very procedure heavy, so combat can be a function of movement. You can do these hasty attacks, prepared attacks, assaults if you wait a turn. There's a lot going on here. Cavalry does what it's supposed to do. Cavalry is not going to be able to stand up against infantry. It's very good for reconnaissance. And the game is really about bringing your forces to bear. Trying to beat up the enemy, to use Forrest's term. Get there the firstest with the mostest. It's the army that can concentrate faster than the enemy will probably win the game. There's victory conditions, of course, geographical in some case. But in the Gettysburg campaign, you're not going to get a lot of points for geographical objectives. Like over here at Ellicott Mills, if the Confederates knock that out, I think they get not very many points, 5 points or something like that. Capture of Harrisburg, if they ever could, they'd get some points. But in the end, destroying the enemy is where you get the amount of points. Now when I look at the campaign at this level, this is the nice thing about it. You can really learn history from it. Now many books I've read about said that if Lee had captured Harrisburg, he could have knocked out the rail system and paralyzed the North and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, you just look at the setup for this, how scattered Lee's army is. Like Early's division way off at York, and Ewell up here at Carlisle, and especially Stewart way down here in the rear of the Union Army. Stewart, for all intents and purposes, might as well be on the surface of the moon, because he's right out of the campaign. He's just not in it. So, the capture of Harrisburg, I don't know, anybody who's seen the Susquehanna River even today, that would be a tall order for the Confederate Army to cross the Susquehanna in the face of resistance, I might add, and capture the capital. I think that was beyond Lee's capability in '63, especially with the Union Army so close. So this game is really all about concentration and efficiency. Now, movement is by die roll, which sounds a little crazy, but it perfectly reflects the system, the Civil War system, and how corps and divisions really moved. If you watch some of the teaching videos, you'll know that when a unit is selected to move, either as an individual unit or by a corps, he's going to roll a die, and with certain modifiers, that'll be how many movement points he has. So let's say that Hill orders Heath to move down the Chambersburg Pike. Not an uncommon move. He'll roll a die, apply the modifiers, and that's how many movement points he'll get. And he'll also receive a fatigue marker. The very act of moving gains you a fatigue marker. So there's no freebies in this game. If you move, you're going to be fatigued. You reach a certain level of fatigue, you become ineffective. Now the elegance of the system becomes, you're in the role of the army commander. Hill gives Heath an order to march. Great, he rolls a die. And let's say Heath marches four hexes. That's the equivalent of 4 miles. While Pender might march further and overtake him, then you might have to pay for stacking and unstacking. You get these traffic jams along the roads. So it's all about efficient movement as units move individually. So it's very much what Lee had to face. It's one thing to give orders, another to have your subordinates execute those orders to your satisfaction. That's what this game is about. Orders, movement, concentration for battle. Battle is complicated, to say the least. Again, I'm not trying to teach the game in this short video, just give you an idea what combat's all about. You can see the combat chart is quite detailed. And there is a whole host of modifiers, depending on the terrain, whether you're across a bridge, a dam, a ferry, a ford, whether you're defending in a mountain, if you're defending against somebody attacking up a ridge. There's artillery modifiers. There's a whole combat chart for that, depending how much artillery you have with you. You've got the ratio odds, which we're quite used to. And the type of attack costs you movement points. So this combat system is complex, but it's ultimately very rewarding because it does show Civil War combat. The player aid charts in the game are excellent. They're of good quality, and I certainly have no qualm about the components. You can see that the components are very well done indeed. If a player prefers not playing with large stacks of units, and sometimes the stacks can get a little high. Here, for example, is Meade stacked on top of the 12th Corps with the artillery reserve with them. You can use these force charts instead and put a single counter on the board. And as I fool around with this game myself, I may do that. I'm not sure yet. But there's plenty of player aids that come with the game to aid you in play. For the new player, like myself, some people have contributed player aids, like this little Great Campaigns of the American Civil War aid, which certainly helps me, and sort of a chart on how to do a particular a certain turn. So there's just a mine of information here. I'll be digesting this system for quite a long time. Like I said, Roads to Gettysburg 2 does have 3 games in it, and I'm dying to get it onto Richmond and Atlanta as ours. So that's all I'm going to say about this great system for now. I'm sure that anyone who studies the Civil War will like it. I can see why the game has been so popular over the years, and it's a wonder I didn't get into it years ago. But like I said, I was more into Civil War battles at that time. So that's it for Roads to Gettysburg 2, Lee Strikes North. Thank you for watching.